This is our 5th time.
I wouldn't have dreamt of what I learned here.
This encourages you and inspires you, and it's so relaxing, and the food is great.
I love Retreat at Sea, and I will do it again.
And you should be here.
Holy Trinity is at work full time here.
Bishops resisting the Vatican's declaration to bless same-sex couples have prevailed, with the Pope's right-hand man waving the white flag. Join us with the latest from the Eternal City, Church Militant's Rome correspondent, Dr. Jules Gomes. Jules, we've been reporting on scores of bishops around the globe and even entire conferences of bishops, all resisting the Vatican's declaration to bless couples living in sin. What's Rome's official position now about all this pushback from so many bishops?
Brad, the Vatican is now in a damage control mode of sheer and utter desperation. This morning, Cardinal Victor Manuel Fernández, the prefect of the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith, who issued this Fiducia Supplicans document, declaration, signed by Pope Francis, seemed to almost take it back. Well, yes and no, by issuing a 2,150-word press release with no magisterial standing, of course, but issuing this clarification to clarify a 5,000-word declaration that he just issued a few weeks ago. And this was in response to, the bomb shelling from across the world, particularly conferences of bishops from Africa, shredding this Vatican declaration.
Wow, a 2,000-word clarification. The original declaration, Fiducia Supplicans, as you said, had a scant 5,000 words, and it ended, or almost ended, with Fernández saying, quote, "Beyond the guidance provided above, no further responses should be expected about possible ways to regulate details or practicalities regarding blessings of this type," end quote. So that was in Fiducia, said nothing else is going to be coming, and now we get 2,000 words of clarity here, so they must really need a lot of clarifying. What particular clarity is Fernández bringing with this clarification, Jules?
Well, Brian, I don't know if you have heard of the first law of holes. And the first law of holes says this: if you are in a hole, stop digging. But sadly, Fernández is in a hole, and he continues to dig even deeper. Now, his primary response, although there's a lot of padding and doublespeak in the clarification, his primary concern is the almost wholesale rejection of Fiducia Supplicans by the Africans. And so he focuses on the context there, and he says, well, one day in the eschatological future, we will require you to implement this. But in the course, you can take time to study it, reflect on it. Things may change with regard to human rights issues of the criminalization of homosexuality, etc., etc. But there's no hurry. Now, let me read to you a couple of quotes from this document. So he says, for example, in many countries, there are strong cultural and legal issues that require time and pastoral strategies that go beyond the short term. So if there are laws that condemn the mere act of declaring oneself as a homosexual with prison, and in some cases with torture and even death, it goes without saying that a blessing would be imprudent. Why? Because, he says, the bishops would not wish to expose homosexual persons to such violence.
Now, Jules, I understand that position there. There is a point to be made about, the Africans, and they have laws and stuff like that. And they did make a mention of that briefly. But it seems like a lot of the bishops pushing back were not simply concerned about some prevailing law, because a lot of the countries didn't have prevailing laws, and you still got pushback. But they're really concerned about just Catholic morality, basic morality of blessing sin or blessing a sinful relationship or seemingly affirming couples in their gay lifestyle. What about that?
Well, Fernández has taken note of that. In fact, again, I talked about the doublespeak of the document, and some of the bishops almost seem to read it, like we talked in our Rome Dispatch a couple of days ago, as bordering on heresy, and therefore not changing merely pastoral practice, but also doctrine. And Fernández uses the term doctrine here. He says, it remains vital that these episcopal conferences, he's referring to those bishops who are rejecting fiducia supplicans, he says it remains vital that these bishops do not support a doctrine different from that of the declaration signed by the Pope, given that it is perennial doctrine, but rather that they recommend the need for study and discernment so as to act with pastoral prudence in such a context. So instead of clarifying, this seems to have, made the whole situation even worse. And a couple of friends this morning from the Vatican were telling me that Francis, Fernández, and fiducia supplicans have made an absolute and utter monkey out of the magisterium. And these were their words. I mean, they're just horrified.
Well, now, if we get back to the fiducia, at least they gave lip service to the idea that if some couple comes up and they want to live a better life, live more Christ-like, and they can be blessed. But we also said, how many couples are coming up to say we're done living a gay lifestyle, we want to be blessed so that we're going to separate. It's just kind of, pastorally speaking, does that happen? And the quote, Jules, that I really that just hit me, it says, each local bishop, by virtue of his own ministry, always has the power of discernment in loco. That is, this is Fernández's words in the latest clarification. Each local bishop, by virtue of his own ministry, always has the power of discernment in loco. That is, in that concrete place that he knows better than others, precisely his own flock. But then he goes on to say, you get the doublespeak. Well, if that's true, he always has that power. But then in the same next sentence, he says, prudence and attention to the ecclesial context and to the local culture could allow for different methods of application, as you were mentioning, Jules, but not a total or definitive denial of this path that is proposed to priests. And I would have to say, what path are we proposing to priests here? Every priest knows that if someone sincerely wants to come up for a blessing, to live a better Christian life, and they may be struggling in that and everything else, but at least they are evidencing that that's what they're wanting to do. Every priest already does that. I mean, Hungary, I think it was Hungary or Poland, no, it was Kazakhstan, said they finished with, it says it goes without saying that anybody that comes up for a blessing to live, more of a Christ-like life will get that. Every single one of these bishops, when they're balking at blessing couples and affirming them in their gay lifestyle, are saying that if any one of those comes forward to say, I want to live a better life, that they will go ahead and do that. Your take on that?
Well, Brad, you're absolutely right. He's assuming here that vast numbers of bishops around the world cannot read or have intentionally misinterpreted his document. And again, this is a straw man, because you talk about bishops, you quote Fernández about bishops having authority over their jurisdiction. But then, the social media, this is virtually triggered a storm of Catholics responding and saying, hey, remember traditionis custodes, you basically dismiss the right of bishops to decide whether they can continue the traditional Latin Mass in their diocese. They have to apply for room, even if they want to advertise this in a parish bulletin. So, come on. quit this double standard and again quit straw manning us, because Brad, as you have repeatedly said that if a couple comes to a priest with wanting to be to repent, of course the priest is going to give a blessing in that direction. Now, to be fair to Fernández, he does say that the blessing does not amount to an absolution, but he does say worryingly that this is a novelty. He uses the term novelty. Now, that is abhorrent to the principle of the Catholic magisterium, which it always said. In fact, there's a joke about this. I think the theologian from Münster, Michael, I forget his surname, it'll come to me in a moment. He says that whenever the Catholic Church issues a new document, it does exactly the opposite of a used car salesman. It says this goes back to apostolic times, even if it doesn't, because there is no novelty. And Fernández goes on to say that this novelty is with regard to creating a new form of blessings that are spontaneous and blessings that are not liturgical. Again, this is sophistry, raised to the nth degree.
Jules, let's go to the report we did yesterday, Rome Dispatch. We reported on a bishop in Peru. He was asking his priest, please don't bless gay couples. And what's been their response since the latest clarification from Fernández?
Right. Well, I just remembered who the theologian from Münster is. It's Michael Voris. Now, we did this report yesterday, and this was a good bishop of Moyobamba in Peru, the prelature there. We've just learned that his vicar general, Father Jaime Ruiz del Castillo, and 51 priests of the prelature, without exception, have signed a statement supporting their bishop, saying that they accept, endorse, and they completely stand in solidarity with the bishop, and they have asked the Vatican to revoke this document.
That's exceptional. Let's move to neighboring Argentina for a minute. There was an interesting development. This is Pope Francis' home country of Argentina, and Catholic lawyers down there are having their own take on fiducia supplicans. And what are they saying about this declaration to bless same-sex couples? What's going on down there?
A lot is going down there. Of course, we have the new president, Javier Milei, who, won the election despite being, hugely, in fact, he spoke insultingly of Pope Francis, and yet he won the election, which tells you a lot about what people think about the present pontifical regime. But the Corporation of Catholic Lawyers have issued a statement, a 3-page statement in Spanish, asking the Vatican to abrogate this document. They actually use the term abrogate this document. Why? Because they say it will do serious damage. They say that this document actually has the force of a law. They may be right or wrong, but this is actually what they're saying. And it will be detrimental. It'll have a detrimental effect on civil rights in secular societies, because, of course, left-wing judges and governments are going to pick it up and say, hey, your Pope is, saying you can bless same-sex marriages. So what's the problem with actually institutionalizing gay marriage, for example? It also said, the lawyers also say that this is going to have a tragic impact on children, because when they see a priest blessing a same-sex couple, they don't understand the, sophistry, Fernández's sophistry between couples and a union, even though in the document, of course, he goes on to say that this in no way endorses sinful relationships or unacceptable behavior, etc., etc. We must be fair to him here. And the lawyers go on to say this is going to have a catastrophic impact on Catholic institutions, because now you can't really sack a teacher in a school just because she's living in a lesbian relationship. She'll simply pick up fiducia supplicans and wave it at you.
You know, when they're saying, you know, we're not weighing in as canon lawyers here, but when they're saying that this somehow has, you know, more of a force of law or whatnot, Fernández said in the latest clarification that the bishops just can't outright make a total and definitive denial of this path that's proposed to priests. And once again, I'm not sure what that path would be, because every priest already blesses anybody that needs help or seeks to live, you know, to get grace in his life, to live a better life. But it seems the takeaway line, my takeaway line, Fernández admitting that, quote, each local bishop, he says, quote, by virtue of his own ministry, always has the power of discernment in loco, that is, in that concrete place that he knows better than others precisely because it's his own flock. Something that all bishops really need to keep in mind, especially on Judgment Day when they have to answer to the Good Shepherd on how they shepherded his flock. They won't be able to blame anyone else, including the Bishop of Rome. Jules, thank you so much for all your timely reporting here and bringing connecting all the various dots as well.
Thank you, Brad.
Thanks again for watching today's episode of Rome Dispatch. This show is brought to you by donors like Real Estate for Life. If you're looking to buy or sell a home and want to support our mission, visit realestateforlife.org. Again, that's realestateforlife.org. Be sure to tell them Church Militant sent you. God bless.